All right, good afternoon, welcome. And I'm Charlene Bomberry, and this is?
Powwow.
And we're representing the Grand River Pow Wow today. Tell you a little bit of history about the powwow. This year, 2020, will be our 41st annual Grand River Champion of Champions powwow, being held over at Chiefswood Park on Highway 54, Six Nations. I guess back in the 70s, we started powwow dancing, a few of us anyway. And then we would powwow like mostly Southern Ontario, go to, where all did we go? Saugeen, Moravian Town, Kettle Point, Muncie, Walpole Island, sometimes up to Wiki, and into Michigan. And so one time we finally thought about it and said, how come we don't have our own? So I think it was about 1978, 79, when we decided, okay, let's form a committee and we'll do some fundraising and we'll host our own powwow here at Six Nations. And we end up calling it Grand River because everything else was Six Nations, right? We wanted to kind of stand out a little bit, so we called it Grand River Powwow, and we came up with the term Champion of Champions. And basically what that means is that the dancer that accumulates the most points over the weekend is deemed to be the champion of champions. And we honor them, and we've got a trophy. I should have brought the trophy, but I didn't think about that. It's a big high trophy, and it has all the names of all the winners on there. And up here on the screen, you have our last year's winner, Melinda Goodwill. She was in the Women's Golden Age category, which is 55 years of age and older. And she danced fancy. So our champion gets a trophy to take home with them and their name on the big trophy. So on that trophy also are the names of all, like I said, of all the past winners, but there's a couple on there at least that have more than one generation on there. So there's a father and son who actually won it back to back. Jim Klein Sr. won it one year, and then Jim Klein Jr. won it the following year. I can't remember if there's a 3 generation on there or not. There might be. I can't remember. It might be Joanne Whitehouse, who was in Women's Traditional, her son, Jason Whitehouse, who was a men's fancy dancer, and I kind of think his son won it, DJ Whitehouse, and he's a grass dancer. So anyway, going back to the beginning, so it was decided that our first powwow would be held in 1980. So throughout 1979, I guess we took that whole year to do some fundraising. And there was 4 families that put in $500 each for our starting pot to be $2,000. And we used that as our seed money for our fundraising. So we did turkey shoots, raffles, we did some catering jobs, and throughout the year we made enough money to have that first powwow. We've got a bunch of our old posters on display here. I don't have one from 1980. There's one from 1981, and I don't remember what the 1980 poster looked like. But it's been held at Chiefswood Park every year since 1980, and And actually watching that first grand entry was rather emotional because we knew how much work had been put into it, and so many of our powwow friends came. So many of the powwow dancers and singers came and helped us out. And we did a lot of advertising, got a lot of people in. And so throughout the years, we've been able to purchase a lot of our own equipment. We own the bleachers that you see there every year. Of course, now they're like pretty old and rickety. And this coming year, 2020, we're going to actually rent some bleachers so they're not so scary. Everybody talks about how scary the bleachers are. And actually, they are really old because when we bought them, they were used. So they were probably already 20, 25 years older, if not more, when we got them. And we've had them ourselves for at least 30 years. Anyway, all along that line. And so we've been able, we own our own tents for the drum arbor. We used to own a couple of fridges for our kitchen. We used to do all our own cooking too for the dancers. But that's when we had a lot more volunteers. So as we went along, we grew and grew and grew. And we were looking at the posters over here and looking at what the admission price is. And I think the lowest price we found was $3 it cost to come into the powwow. And now, 41 years later, it's gone all the way up to $10. So we think that's a reasonable price. Like, it's a good family outing, so families can come, and like adults are $10 to get in, and kids are $1 or $2, which is pretty good. And our vendors have grown. We've got now over 100 craft vendors and over 30 food vendors. So there's a lot of protocol actually in a powwow. So we each powwow, when the dancing starts, we start out with grand entry, and always first coming into the dance area are the veterans. So they lead in the dancers, and they bring in the flags. They bring in an Eagle Staff flag, as well as country flags, and some of them bring in nation flags, all different ones. And we always have what's called head staff, and that is we'd get someone who is a veteran and ask them to be our head veteran. And they're the ones who carry in the Eagle Staff, and that person leads in all the dancers, and all the other veterans follow behind him. I think our first veteran was Jack Moore in 1980. And then behind the veterans will come our head dancers. And Jack was our head dancer in 1980. So our first head dancers were Jack Moore and Bunty Enku. Jack is Pima from Arizona, and Bunty is Onondaga from Syracuse, New York. And then after that, all the dancers come in by category and age. They change up. Different powwows change them up a little bit. Usually it's all the men's traditional dancers, then all the men's fancy, then all the men's grass, and then the kids in the same order. And then the women come in, traditional, jingle, fancy, and in that same order for the kids. And like I said, things have changed, because I know when we first start dancing, the head man dancer would lead in the men, and the head woman dancer would lead in the women. And now it's the head dancers are at the front leading in everybody. So there's been a little bit of changes here and there. What's the next slide?
So the next slide is that we have a video, and this is one of the videos that we got Gary Joseph through the red door to actually come in and ask. We asked him to see if he would help us do a video, and he was able to do so. So if we can get that on the screen there, now. I'm going to stop it, start it over. There's another video that we have actually too which I thought was that one, but we'll fix it up next time.
One of the highlights too actually is the dancers. They always want to be the ones that dance under the lights. They're always they like dancing under the lights, and at night they all come out with all their glittery outfits, so it reflects in the lights all the time. This year for 2020, our host drum is Bear Creek Singers. Last year we had the Boys, and the year before that we had Northern Cree.
And then I guess maybe even too, just a sample, this is a video from that we had taken of Northern Cree, so it just kind of gives us a view of what kind of singing that we actually bring into the
And if you saw the these past Grammy Awards this year, you would have saw Northern Cree walking the red carpet there. They were nominated. They didn't win, but they were nominated. I forget what I was going to say.
I guess one of the things I was thinking of is too is that when we turn around and listen to our dancers, we listen to our singers, we listen to the people who come and everything else, and it's drums like Northern Cree that turn around and attract dancers and then attract the spectators because, you know, thanks to YouTube and social media and things like that, where videos are being posted, people see things, people see other powwows, that they see the kind of quality of the singing and the drumming that comes in, and so that does attract a number of dancers and spectators and that. So again, so like what we looked at for this year is that we asked Bear Creek from Sault Ste. Marie area to come in because they're a well-known group and everything else. And when we did ask them, they immediately said yes. They'd come in and be our host drum for us. So we're excited for that for this year.
And the Powwow Committee is an all-volunteer organization and has been right from the very beginning. It's 100% volunteer. So we're always looking for volunteers. Hint, hint. There's a lot of things, a lot of work put into putting on the powwow, and the budget for the powwow is over $100,000. That's all the prize money, renting equipment, and all of that, all those expenses. We have to bring in toilets, the sound equipment. And we've been fortunate that the Six Nations Elected Council has paid for the rental of the park over the last few years. And actually, going back to that, when we first started in 1980, I think the park charged us like $150 rent, and then it gradually went up a little bit. But I don't know how soon. Once we started, how many years after, the Powwow Committee approached the park and said, why don't we do something, a partnership, and let's put some improvements in this park. Instead of us paying you rent of like $300 or whatever, we'll pay you $1,500. And you guys at the park put in $1,500, and that there's $3,000 there for you to spend on the park. I think that's initially how the first hydro got put in down there, which was just been recently upgraded. So that was at the beginning, early on in the powwow, and then eventually, as I said, things changed. So then Parks and Rec start taking over the park, and it ended up, the rent ended up being, I don't know what it is right now because the park has changed hands again. So it's been about $3,800 to rent the park for the powwow. But we're in there like the whole week before, setting up, and then pretty much the whole week afterwards, cleaning up, taking out everything we brought in.
So even to, like, I guess what Charlene was talking about was, being able to, needing volunteers to be able to do that. So, the setup the week before and everything. So, a lot of times to bring in the bleachers, to bring in the trailers, to bring in other equipment and stands and everything that's needed to actually, for us to function. So even though that they might say that that volunteers are needed over the weekend, yes, they are, but we need a lot of people beforehand and then also to clean up after. So how many volunteers roughly would you say that we actually get, like, just on the weekend itself?
I think just on the weekend it's usually maybe 75 to 100.
And then even with that, I would say that that's a small amount compared to the number of people that we get, the number of spectators, dancers, singers. So averagely, we're saying around that we can get around, 5,000 spectators, maybe a little bit more, both days and that. And so, there's a lot of things that happen and everything else. So so I just wrote down a couple, or just made note here on what kind of volunteers that we're looking for. So security, parking, food handling, admission, registration, garbage, and that's just a few tasks that we have to look for volunteers for. But one of the things that we actually had last year was that we had this company come in and audit us to see how can we improve, how can we make things differently, how can we increase whatever, whether it's more people, whether it's dancers, or whatever. And one of the things that I took away is that even though that it was small, he goes, what they noticed in their evaluators, they said that the garbage was always taken care of. And I think that, I really think, that's great for us, because he says they've been to functions, they've been to other events, community events, festivals and everything, and garbage can pile up and pile up and pile up. And he says that was one of our things, is that, so, we have a crew that actually just looks after garbage right from the start, right until the end of the day. And then, so that they're cleaning up and everything. The garbage cans are not overflowing. So I really take pride into hearing that, of how well we have our volunteers, and then on how well they do and everything. So what we've also done, so this is a volunteer application form that we did up for last year, and we're going to change that again for this year. So if there's anybody that's interested to volunteer and everything else, follow us on social media. We do a call out and everything like that. And then there's a registration form just to help us to get your name, your address, phone numbers, email, contact information, how old you are, and then maybe size of a t-shirt. So you see on the last slide that there was we have volunteer t-shirts. But then also to see what you're interested in volunteering for, and the time and the kind of time that you're available to do that. So, but also this is not just for the weekend. So if you're interested in helping out, we meet almost probably a good, I'd say even 10 months out of the year, maybe almost all year, because there's a handful of us that will meet even when we're having dinner or going for breakfast or things like that. We talk about the powwow, we talk about what we need to do meeting-wise and everything like that. So it's a constant job that we're looking at. But then now, like I said, we're constantly looking. So if anybody's interested in helping out in the community, that, by all means, we'll be willing to take you to help you and help us. So one of the things that I got thinking of is that we didn't put in there is in regards to the powwow is Saturday and Sunday, so that happens with the dancing and the arts and crafts, and the foods are there. But in the recent years, we've been starting on Friday night, and we've been having a Friday night entertainment. And that entertainment, so last year, because it was our 40th year, we stuck with Six Nations. We stuck with a Six Nations theme, and so we had Camp Hill and Mike do some social dancing, and just a demonstration to actually showcase the way we would dance traditionally here. So even though that the powwow is not a traditional dance form for Six Nations, but it's a dance form that's for Turtle Island, because that's a lot of times there's a lot of powwows that goes across Turtle Island here. But Six Nations has a different kind of dance form. So those are the kinds of things that we kind of look for. So each year we kind of bring in somebody to kind of showcase their talents, to showcase their culture, to showcase their dancing. And so this year we haven't finalized on who we're asking to come in for this year, but we always try to keep an open mind of what we kind of would like to have and everything. So I know just things that what we looked at was the kind of things that we would love to have would be maybe some Māori dancers from New Zealand, maybe some hula dancers from Hawaii, or and maybe just different kinds. So then different kinds of dances, because it gives it a different kind of showcase here, and it gives us a different view. And even though that some people can go and see that those in their locations, but it would be great for us to be able to see the different kind of dancing and songs and chants and whatever it is in our area as well.
And one other thing is, it's an outdoor event, so it's very dependent on the weather. If it rains, well, we got to go inside somewhere. So the arena is usually is always booked for us. It's on standby. So if it rains and we have to go over there last minute, it's there. We can go in there. So coming up for 2020, our dates are July 24th to the 26th. And as Bubba said, Bear Creek is our host drum. So we'll welcome everyone to come and join us. And did anybody have any questions? Volunteers? No. All right. Yeah, for having us give you some information. Yep.
What kind of attendance did you get like at the start? Like where did it progress to what it is now? Like just over the years, like so say you're very first in 1980, how many people came like spectators?
How many spectators did we get the first year? I would guess maybe 1,000 or 2,000. Because we did do really a lot of advertising. We didn't have the bleachers then. Everybody brought their own chairs or sat on the ground. And now, I think tourism estimated last year that there was 12,000 people. I'm like, how did you come up with that figure? But they just like kind of did an average count of how many people came in a car. So they kind of averaged it out and looked at how many cars were in the parking lot, you know, just. So yeah, we think we're getting maybe 10,000, 12,000 people now.
So I guess even too, like, because over the years that we've been having the Champions Powwows is that because yes, it has grown. And so, you know, we try to do our best to turn around and say, how can we accommodate people? How can we turn around and accommodate our seniors, our handicap, to parking, and then to even like on-ground shuttle services. So, you know, those are the kinds of things that we kind of make sure that we keep in mind that, you know, because, you know, what we look at is that in order for us to be able to do this, we count on our spectators. We count on people to come and visit us and everything else because we use the price of admission of the gates, and that goes right back in again because we don't make any money personally out of this. You know, it goes right back into like, you know, the community's bank account so that we can continue to do this next year. So when we do that, then we actually try to make sure that we're, you know, yes, we would like to look after our spectators and everything. So, you know, we've been expanding to having to park off the lots and off the Chiefswood Park to another site, and then now looking at shuttle services to having little shuttles like golf carts to go from parking from up the hill to bringing them down the hill, and then vice versa. So, and I know that there's people that are spectators that do come. They're very much appreciative of those little things, but they're very appreciative too that things are there and things are open, and then because we are encouraging everybody is welcome. Everybody's welcome to attend. You know, but we have to keep in mind that, you know, like we're a family event. So, you know, we have children, we have babies, we have teens, adults, older people, seniors and that. So, you know, like we made a stance so that we are, you know, drug and alcohol free. We made a stance so that we say, you know, everybody is welcome. You know, we don't want to exclude anybody. But then also, everybody can be kind of tricky at times because people have their animals, they have fur babies and everything like that. And for that, we ask for them not to come. Don't bring their fur babies, don't bring their pets, don't bring their animals unless they're service animals. And the reason is that because we have a lot of people, and there's a lot of people walking around, and we just don't want accidents and everything like that, and or maybe animals, because the dancers are walking around and they take pride in their outfits and everything, so we just don't want accidents to happen. Things do happen, accidents do happen, but at the same point we try to minimize as much as we can.
So you said that you're gonna rent the seating. Is there, like in the future, are you gonna be trying to purchase new seating?
We've actually looked into purchasing new bleachers.
And what about more? Like I know that the ones in there, you said they're old, but every time I've gone, I think maybe once I've sat down, because there's never anything for expansion on that.
We'd like to, but this space just isn't there. The alternative would go higher and make it scarier again, but no.
So those are the kinds of things that we constantly look at and that we constantly look and to consider, talk about and say, well, if we're expanding, how are we going to expand? The park is a great venue for the way the powwow happens and everything else, because there's an open spot and everything else, and then the bleachers are there. Yes, it's in open sun and everything like that, but we actually have the trees where the vendors are, and so there's a lot of shaded areas so that the spectators can walk around and shop and everything else, and they have the shade. So it is a great venue, but we also talk about is this where we're going to continue to stay? Should we look at growth? If growth is happening, where can that happen if it needs to?
One other thing too is the powwow started before Chiefswood Bridge, was it? So those first 5 years anyway, it was a task to get over there and get everything over there and set up, because we had to go around through Caledonia or up through Kingsville, or go around down the other end of the river and around. So we everybody that was volunteering basically went and camped there. We were all campers too, so it was.
And I also chuckle too, is because now, even though that we have the bridge there, to get into the park can take a while. So we always tell people, plan ahead, plan early. If any of your dancers are local, you need to plan to come ahead. So we had a volunteer, she helps us out with our website and social media and stuff like that. And she comes in, and after grand entry's already started and everything, she's coming in, she's just like, oh, I made it. And this is like, hey, you're here, you're not late, but it's grand entry's already started. And she goes, she was in the parking lot, she was on the road, and she was on 54, and it took her an hour to go from there to the parking lot into the grounds. So for me, that's just that's great and wonderful, because we're getting the crowds and everything. So, but at the same point, people are coming in at the last hour and getting stuck in traffic and then parking and everything else. So if you'd like to see the grand entry, because it's one of the times that all our dancers are in the arena, it's a great thing to see. But at the same point, to turn around and to kind of plan ahead a little bit better. But that's the kinds of things too, as a committee, that we have to take in mind. So, we contract with police services to help us out with traffic because we have the light that's now on 54 in Chiefswood, so we actually have police officers to help us, with the flow of traffic as well. And that was the other reasons why we started looking at parking off the premises, and so that we can, help grow and expand.
So 2020, July 24th to 26th, Grand River Champion of Champions Powwow. Yeah.